Call the meeting to order, please. Roll call.
Mayor Yanish.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Christensen.
Here.
Amon.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Dockin.
Here.
Fagerly.
Here.
DeBleek.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any consent items that need to be pulled?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item B and C for reading Labor Relations Committee meeting minutes.
I wonder if we should back up and see if there's any proposed additions or deletions first to the agenda. And then we'll go to the consent agenda.
We can do that.
Okay, sure. Okay, so are we on the consent agenda? Would you repeat that, please?
Item number B and C on consent agenda items. I'd like to read those minutes, please.
Okay. And I would like to pull the item G, the mayoral appointment of the CR Advisory Board, Rachel Skirvit. Not because of her, but because of the, I have not had a chance to meet her yet and don't know of her, so I'm pulling that just to get to meet her first. Are there any other items that need to be pulled? If not, I will entertain a motion to file those minutes.
So move. Are we gonna read those two first that we wanted to?
We can do that afterwards.
Okay, that's fine. All right.
I'll move to approve the consent items.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the consent items as written, with the exception of B and C and G. Special City Council minutes, if you would read those now, along with the, I understand you have.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if it would be possible, we have to give a report on the city administrator's evaluation in 30 days, so I'd like to, and Robert Scott has got that prepared, so we reviewed it. So if I could do that all at one time, that'd be great.
Okay, can we do that?
Yes, and now would be an appropriate time for that.
Okay, now would be the
Now would
perfect
be the
time?
appropriate time? That's fine.
Okay.
You're going to make me work for this.
Do you want to just read the minutes? You don't mind?
Yeah, I think I've got them here. You've got them there? Well, a special meeting in Willmar City Council was called to order by Mr. Honorable Mayor Frank Yanish. Roll call was taken. All council people were present, and the mayor. The others present were the City Attorney Robert Scott. The purpose of the meeting was evaluation of performance of the City Administrator according to statutes 13D.05, and we started at 4:05 p.m. The meeting reopened at 6:50 p.m. and continued and adjourned until 4:45 p.m. June 17th in Conference Room 1. A motion was made and seconded to close the meeting to the public pursuant to Minnesota statutes 13D.05 at 5:44. Meeting reopened at 6:09 and was continued and adjourned until June 25th. The second meeting was held June 17th. A special meeting of the City Council was called to order, and there were 9 people present, including the mayor. including Charlene Stevens, City Administrator, Labor Attorney Frank Madden, and City Attorney Robert Scott. We close the meeting pursuant to statutes 13D.03 for the purpose of discussing labor negotiation strategies. Motion was seconded and carried, and the meeting reopened, and there be no further business. We adjourned at 5:30 p.m. And I'll move to file those minutes, Mr. Mayor.
The motion has been made and seconded to file the minutes of the labor meeting, special council meeting that we had. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. That motion carries.
Also, the last item, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, is the summary of conclusions of the evaluation of performance of Charlene Stevens, City Administrator, pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 13D.05, Subdivision 3. On June 16, 2014, the City Council held a closed meeting to evaluate the performance of Charlene Stevens, City Administrator. The meeting was twice continued, first until June 17, 2014, and then until June 25, 2014, at which time the meeting concluded. In accordance with the governing law as the City Council meeting, which is the next open City Council meeting following the closed session, the City is required to summarize the conclusions of the evaluation of performance of Ms. Stevens reached by the City Council at the June 16, 2014 closed meeting. The conclusions were as follows. Ms. Stevens did not request that such a meeting be open to the public. As a result, the evaluation of Ms. Stevens' performance took place in a closed meeting as required by the Minnesota Open Meeting Law and Minnesota Government Data Practices Act relating to personal data. As Chair of the Labor Relations Committee of the Willmar City Council, I will now provide a summary of the conclusions reached by the City Council from the June 16, 2014 evaluation. The City Council was divided on the issue of a City Administrator's job performance. The City Administrator can be an effective communicator and presenter of information, but the City Council encourages her to improve on maintaining communication with all members of the City Council. The City Council specifically requests the City Administrator work with staff to provide more detailed and informative staff reports to the City Council for issues on which council action is requested, and generally to make information more readily available and accessible to the council at the public at the City Council meetings. And that's the end of the conclusion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Other items removed from the council or from the consent items? Just the one that I mentioned, the mayor's appointment, and the reason for that was, again, was for the purpose of that I have not met this person. I would like to meet her before I approve of the appointment. And I think we'll go from there into the, do we need to approve the?
Yes, there we go. Approve the consent agenda, less
Item
B, C, and G.
No, I think just item G now.
No, we have to do B, C, because B, C were acted on their own.
Okay.
Okay. We approve the consent items.
I thought we
Did-
We approved the
did?
consent
I
We
agenda.
have
think
a
you did.
motion and a second
No,
to
you-
approve the consent agenda,
Minus B.
a subsequent motion and a second and approve to file B and C, and now G is removed. All the rest need to be voted on.
Okay. We need to vote on the rest of the consent items. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. That motion carries. Now we will vote on the mayoral appointment poll. Put that back in.
Pulled.
It's pulled.
It's pulled.
That's removed. That's just tabled
We're moving on.
to open forum now.
Okay, we go to the Willmar City Open Forum. Is there anyone scheduled to speak?
Yes, sir, there's two, is there two? Someone told me there are two. And I saw Andy sign up. Are you, you're reporting later, Andy? Okay. Mr. Bob Enos
Bob Enos?
The only one. Andy's going to report later on.
Kevin, there was another one too, this gentleman. He didn't sign up.
Okay, well, he can come up. Invisible ink, but that's good.
Good evening, folks. Thanks for hearing me out tonight. My name's Bob Enos. As I'm sure you know, I live on 905 Trot Avenue Southwest for the purpose of providing transparency. The public should know that I am a candidate for the Willmar City Council. A few weeks ago, I went to a meeting of the Joint Powers Board for the EDC. You probably know I haven't been involved on that board for a while now. Several months ago, when the issue of renewing or finding a new office space for the EDC came up, myself and one other member of the operations board had expressed an interest in shopping the market to see if we could find a better value for the money that we were spending. At the time, it was decided that a search committee would be put together to solicit proposals, look at some other real estate, and come to a determination. The meeting that I went to was the result of that search committee's work to take a look at properties. They came up with two recommendations on those, you probably know. The first one was a building that we commonly call the Windstream Building. The second one was the building in which the EDC is currently housed, which is Center Place Associates, which is owned by a holding company controlled by Gary Geiger and his brother Tom. So the proposals that were ultimately approved, first place was this Windstream proposal. The second place was the Center Place proposal. At the very last minute, Councilman Amon, who's a member of the Joint Powers Board, introduced a proposal, admittedly on his part at the 11th hour, that just seemed to offer a tremendous opportunity for cost-saving, new building, terrific location vis-a-vis being on the entrance to Willmar from the Twin Cities at a tremendous price. Up until now, the EDC had been spending, with all fees included, for downtown office space in arguably dodgy section of town for 4 chairs and 4 desks, $2,500 a month for a 5-year contract, which totals, of course, about $150,000. The Windstream building came in at, I think it was roughly $110,000. The proposal that Mr. Amon brought to light was a proposal that would have cost the taxpayers $48,000 for 5 years, a savings of at least 55 and upwards of 65% on existing expenses. He tried passionately to make a case for that property. It was a great deal. The staff from the EDC thought the property was a fabulous property, all kinds of potential. A landlord, not one that I know, but a landlord who they all felt could be completely flexible in working with them. Mr. Amon was unable not only to get any consent on that agreement, he was unable to get one vote from the entire board to even consider talking about it. His motion did not carry for lack of a second. The discussion at the end of that inability to get the second was closed for discussion by the chairman of the group. And they proceeded to go and talk about those next 2 proposals. You know, I've worked in Providence, Rhode Island. I've worked in the city of New York. I've worked on Wall Street. I like to think that I've probably seen as much to be jaded about sleazy business activity as anybody. I didn't see anything at that meeting that couldn't at least rival any of the sleaziest and greediest activity I'd ever seen on the East Coast. I mean, I couldn't make this stuff up when I told my friends back home what I was seeing. It was sleazy. Here's why it was sleazy. We have 3 people on the board, on the subcommittee to look at real estate. One of them is Gene Spalding. Admittedly has a long record in public administration, has done plenty of grant writing, knows the ins and outs of procurement and RFPs and proposals. The second one was Raleigh Bowl. He has an extensive finance and banking background, also a long history as an employee with Heritage Bank, owned by the Geiger brothers, and is currently on their board of directors. Mr. Gary Gilman, again, a long history in finance, also a member of
Can we,
the Elks.
can we cut it short? We're over our time limit. Bob.
It depends, Mayor, on how much $150,000 of wasted taxpayers' money is worth to you. Here's what I would suggest to you today, folks. The proposal that was approved by the Joint Powers Board for the Windstream building is inappropriate, probably illegal, and probably should be thrown out and thrown off the table for the simple fact that if anybody here has ever sold a car, you don't have to be a finance expert to know you can't sell a car you don't own. The deadline on this proposal was April 25th. According to the county assessor, as of April 25th, that property was owned by Lakedale Communications out of Annandale. The proposal that I have in my hand that was submitted to the EDC to offer that property is signed by a fellow by the name that you all know of, Joe Gimsey. The owner of the property is not listed here, either in business or an address. All we see is Mr. Gimsey's name and cell phone address. So it seems to me that unless he was acting as a duly authorized representative or broker, and I'm not sure that he's a registered broker or a lawyer, unless he was acting as a broker for Lakedale Communications, he didn't have the legal right to offer this contract to the Joint Powers Board. It should be thrown
I think
out.
we need to talk with them about that, but
Here's the worst part, Mr. Mayor. I think that the people that were responsible, including on the public side, for seeing this thing get approved, knew that it was illegal. And what's going to happen on the 11th hour, I would predict, maybe not now, I would predict that we would have heard from Mr. Rehnquist, who would have told us that upon advice of counsel, that he was looking at a proposal that was no good, and that we should automatically go to the second place proposal, which was Mr. Geiger's building, which looks to me as a backdoor maneuver to just continue that same 5-year contract that he's had already, so at the end of 10 years, he will have earned himself on that building $300,000 when we had a perfectly good opportunity to save the taxpayers a fistful of money on a nice building for $48,000. Now, Mr. Anderson, the first thing, and to be fair, you were the only one at that table who said, I don't know if this looks quite right. I don't know if this meets procedure because I don't know who owns this building. And you were the only one to speak up. I think the only part that you missed, sir, was that they don't own this building and we can't look at this proposal. Just a suggestion. So now we have the appearance of a backdoor maneuver for an existing real estate owner to fatten his pockets at EDC expense. I don't think that's what economic development is. I think we need a little bit more on the economic development side than making the banker a little bit richer.
thank you. Let's call
This is
it
illegal, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Appreciate
your
it.
time.
Who is next on the public forum?
I don't have his name. He'll have to come to the podium if you'll allow that.
My name is Kim Eichhoff. The reason I'm here tonight is that on July 3rd, I was running down Becker Avenue and ran over a manhole cover. The manhole cover came up out of its hole, flipping underneath my truck, ruining a tire and a rim on my pickup, and lunging my trailer that I was pulling 4 feet in the air, bringing it down and wrecking a tire on the trailer. Now, this manhole cover, once I had gone over it, was 12 feet from its original point. I made a purpose to call the cops. They came out, took care of the manhole, put it back in place. Went over to the city office and spoke with the clerk that was over there. The guy that's in charge of public works was gone for the day. She kind of told me that they're not liable for a manhole cover coming out of its slot and repairs. I've had Roll Tire give me an estimate on a tire to replace the tire that was on there. A rim, that's $225 right there. Alignment's $70 because the whole front end of my truck's completely messed up. Trailer tire's $90, and they says we don't know if there's any parts that have to be replaced yet on the front end of my truck. So what I'm here to do is ask the city what their, means of taking care of the issues with damages done to a vehicle from an item that is responsible or part of the city property.
What is our position on that, Kevin?
The position is he needs to come down to the city hall, and we file the claim to the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, and they deal with all the issues. The adjuster, most likely Mark Evenson, will hunt him down. Work, cell phone, they'll find him, but we need all that information.
Okay. All right, well, that's why I'm here tonight, so I want to know where to go with this.
Back to City Hall.
Okay.
Or if you just want to leave your name and number this evening, you can just write it down on a piece of paper and hand it to me, and Mr. Halliday will get in touch with you
Okay,
tomorrow.
thank you.
Is there anyone else in public forum that was scheduled to speak or wants to speak? If not, we'll move on to the consideration of the Jenny-O Turkey Store license agreement. Mr. Peterson, do you want to explain that to us, please?
Mayor Yanish, members of the council. There have been some delays in getting Willmar Avenue opened and the crossing built, and the delays in getting Willmar Avenue open are directly tied to the BNSF's inability to complete their part of the project. Due to that fact, Jenny-O Turkey Store has been unable to access the public right-of-way to begin work on their project. They have requested a license agreement that would allow them to actually begin the construction within the public right-of-way before the new Willmar Avenue is opened and that section of street is officially vacated. Under the purchase agreement, Jenny-O has until August 1 to begin construction, so obviously it's a concern to them that they have this license agreement. Within the agreement, accommodations have been made for public access to maintain and repair utilities in the rights-of-way until such time as the rights-of-way are vacated. It's a recommendation of staff that the council adopt the resolution approving the license agreement for Jenny-O Turkey Store.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to adopt the resolution approving the license agreement as written to Jenny-O Turkey Store. Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That carries. Would you also speak to us about the resolution to amend the resolution?
I will indeed. When the city council adopted the resolution to vacate the public right-of-way for the Jenny-O Turkey Store project, the city retained a large easement in favor of the city that we have for utilities. Because that property is going to be transferred to Jenny-O, our public utilities will end on the border of that property, and for that reason, we only need a very small easement in the corner of that property. So we've reduced the area of the easement, and it's been described in the accompanying resolution. The city's rights to access all public utilities are maintained in this resolution, and it's a recommendation of staff that the resolution amending the vacation resolution number 2014.01 be adopted.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second has been made to adopt the resolution as presented, resolution number 2014.01. Roll call.
Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And we have the consideration of a resolution to commence quiet title action. Bruce, do you want to mention that to us?
Sure. In the course of conducting title work on the Jenny-O Turkey Store land transfer, there was a minor title question uncovered that dates back to 1936. I won't get into details as to what all occurred back then, but it involved the property owner, the state of Minnesota for highway purposes, and then the transfers up until this point leave some cloud in the title. When the city platted the property in 2009, our title insurance company clearly indicated that the city was the fee owner. They looked at the records, and they were confident that the city did have title to the property. However, recent title work indicates a concern regarding the transfer of right-of-way from MnDOT to the city. And in order to clear that up, the city needs to commence a quiet title action to resolve the matter. It's a recommendation of staff that the council adopt the resolution to commence quiet title action, and also within that resolution, include language that the quiet title action be included in the developer agreement. That way we'll be able to keep the closing process on track, and we won't have to bring this back to the council on the 21st.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to adopt the resolution as presented. Roll call.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, some questions?
Questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Mr. Peterson, you indicate in the paperwork that accompanied this that the legal process expenses would be borne by the city?
That was our initial understanding. We haven't reached that conclusion yet with Jenny-O Turkey Store, but if it does have to go this route, I would say that there is a reasonable chance that those costs will have to be borne by the city so that we can provide marketable title. We're hoping that we don't have to do the quiet title. We've got some things in the work that we think can resolve those matters very quickly. They just didn't happen soon enough for tonight's council meeting. If we do have to initiate a quiet title action, we're fairly confident that it will be a benign action, but you never know. You never know who can come out of the woodwork in the case of a quiet title action. So
Well, I've done them in the past, not for 20 years, but they haven't changed a lot. And, I mean, and one thing that I can't tell from the information that we've received from you or from anyone on this is the nature of the possible defect in the title. But if it is 1936, my first inclination would be, my question would be, whether or not this is covered by the 40-year statute that, you know, purpose is to put statute limitations, if you will, on claims that exceed 40 years of matters that are of record. So, I mean, there might not be a need for a title action, and of course, the title insurance commitment the city got in '09 didn't find any fault with the title or any problem. And obviously, I would assume there were different title insurance companies possibly.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I can add a little information to this as I've been involved with Jenny-O's attorneys and trying to sort through this issue. As Mr. Peterson stated, this does date all the way back to the 1930s. I think it's safe to say at this point that there's a dispute between the title company that the city used in 2009 and the title company that Jenny-O is using currently about whether the chain of title here is in fact marketable or not. What happened is the city took a deed from the property owners back in actually 1940 for lots of lands, apparently including all the lands that are the subject of this transaction. It appears that a small section of Outlot B, indicated on the overhead right now, and in fact it's even smaller than what's indicated because I think it only extends to the areas within the right-of-way that exists. So the northernmost areas of the shaded area on the depiction on the overhead. That was apparently carved out of the deed the city took in 1940. Previous to that, the same property owners had granted an easement to the state for the highway right-of-way. In 2008, the state granted everything it owned in this parcel and many other parcels when it turned back Highway 40 to the city. And it did so by quitclaim deed, which means the city took everything the state had. Jenny-O's title company has objected, saying that the city only has the right-of-way easement and not fee ownership to that, again, that small area of Outlot B that you can see on the overhead. There is other record evidence of title in the city, which I think is the source of the dispute between the title companies. And that is evidence of a tax sale of this land, including the entire quarter section where this property is located, showing that it was, in fact, granted to the state as a result of delinquent taxes that weren't paid also in the 1930s. That's satisfactory to the city's title company. It apparently, at least to this point, has not been satisfactory to Genio's title insurance company. And that's the source of this is one of many issues that has come up and as the party is trying to proceed to closing. There are other options to a quiet title action that the city will obviously exhaust before it would have to undertake that obligation. One would be continuing to investigate through the city's contacts with Candy Abstracts to find additional evidence of title. The city does have rights under the purchase agreement to take some time here to remedy any defects Genio has identified. The city also potentially could simply purchase a title policy before closing, which I'm told would enable Genio's title company to then issue a policy to Genio and would resolve this issue. And I think that would be cheaper and much more advantageous for everyone than going through a quiet title action. So the quiet title action itself is a last resort. It is an issue that Genio has identified that needs to be addressed, both in this resolution and in the language in the development agreement that you approved at the last meeting, stating that if all else fails, the city will commence a quiet title action. We do think if it comes to that, we are optimistic that the city would be able to quiet title in its favor, and ultimately in Genio's favor, and let this project move forward.
May I ask what you suggest that we do at this point?
Yeah, I worked with Bruce to formulate the staff recommendation to the council, which is approve the resolution authorizing our office, if need be, to commence a quiet title action. That's not going to happen immediately. Like I said, there's other options to exhaust first. The second is, in addition to that, to approve a change to the development agreement pursuant to which the city would agree to undertake a quiet title action or at least participate in a quiet title action if it cannot produce satisfactory evidence of marketable title.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott, I understand that. But then my question would be, looking at our purchase agreement with Genio, would this expense come under the transaction fees and be reimbursable to the city?
I suppose we could make that argument. I guess there's another portion where, because this is pretty standard in agreements like this with developers, where the city represented that it had good title, so I think Genio's position would be that they thought they were accepting clear title and the city should have the obligation to.
Well, I originally voted to approve this purchase agreement.
Yes.
Even though I did have some reservations that I did not express at that time about, we provide in this agreement that we're given a quitclaim deed, which means which in essence means all they're getting is what we've got. And then, of course, to go on in the agreement, which I believe you drafted, to make some representations or supposedly warrant title, that we have good and marketable title, which I find inconsistent with, then why would we give a quitclaim deed? You know, I didn't raise that then, but and also we're giving land that I believe staff is conservatively valued at, with the two parcels, at about $1.7 million. And in addition, the city has moved a road that the city will have to build at an additional expense of $1.7 million. Quiet title action is $2,000 to $3,000. It isn't all that expensive. But I'm just a little bit, considering what's being given here, I don't understand, or I question why Genio just hasn't stepped up and say, well, we'll go ahead and do it, we'll pay for it. You know, that kind of, I'm a little troubled by that. I'll be honest. It bothers me.
Any further discussion? Councilman Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bruce, are we voting to approve this or to amend the developer's agreement, like you said?
A yes vote on the staff recommendation would be to commence quiet title action and to participate in that process. And again, we haven't worked out which party would be responsible. And the second part of the resolution that I asked was that it be amended so that language can be included in the developer agreement that specifies the city's use of quiet title if we have to go that route.
Okay, so we may not have to go that route.
We're hopeful we don't have to go that route, but this, because of the timing of things and the scheduling of council meetings, it's coming to you tonight so that we can try to get Jenny on the ground.
But wouldn't it make sense so that they pay for it? I mean, it's the quiet title instead of it being borne by the city. I mean, $2,000 to $3,000, and you're getting a couple $1 million worth of land, or 1 point, whatever it was, 7 or 8 million. I have to agree with Councilman Johnson that just it seems like if they want to do it, just if you're that big company, you're going to go ahead and do it.
Well, the resolution does not include language regarding which party would pay, I don't believe. So,
I see that, but on the financial
it's just that we would
considerations-
commence and or participate in. So that's something that we would resolve at the staff level. Everything that we do on a daily basis with these projects, we do with the best interests of the city in mind. And to the extent that we can reduce the city's expenses in these transactions, we do that.
Can it be worded, the state put that in there, that the cost, if we were going to use the quiet title, that the cost will be borne by Hormel?
The council can certainly make that decision, and we would take that back to Hormel's attorneys.
Mr. Mayor, a little confusing. I'm glad it's Tim here, and we have Robert Scott to talk about quiet title action. I'm not knowledgeable on that fact, so we have to give a lot of credit to the people that have gone to school for that and understand what's going on. It's the first time ever in the council I think we've ever had to deal with this that I can remember. In a case like that, sometimes you have situations that come up as a result of a final contract where, you know, it's kind of disputable on both sides. No one's real fault, but we both want to get the job done. Wouldn't we best just say we'll both share the cost? It's not a large amount of money. It's just a principle. But is there a representative here from Genio? There is? Okay. I was just curious if there's any stand on that.
We haven't come to any final agreement on this. The clear issue at this point is the title is not clean, so we need to have clean title to the property to be able to move forward on this project. That's the issue today. It was our clear understanding that the city had a clear title to the property, which apparently is under some review and discussion.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering that whoever gave the title opinion last that said it was clear, are they under any obligation to stand any of, if there's subsequent action, would they be liable for that expense?
I did look at this briefly. The problem with trying to recover, for example, the costs of undertaking this action from the title company is that the city ordered a title commitment in 2009 when it platted the lands. My understanding is the city did not actually order the title insurance policy that the company committed to. There is language in the commitment stating that basically saying that the city can't use its title works other than for the purposes of holding the title company to the obligation to issue the policy within whatever 6 months time period they gave. So I think that would be difficult.
Any further questions? Do we vote on adopt the resolution as presented?
With the amendment that language be added to the developer agreement specifying the use of quiet title action if necessary.
It has nothing to do with the cost. If you want to add something to it, you should do it now.
There is a motion and a second that has been made.
The resolution has a motion and a second. Yes, that's done.
Okay. And the resolution is as presented, am I right?
Yeah.
Councilman Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I would like to amend the motion to state that if quiet title is used, that do you name Hormel, that they be responsible for the costs that will be borne? Is that who signed the contract? Was it Hormel?
It's Jenny.
The paperwork is with
Jenny-O.
Jenny-O Turkey
Okay,
Store.
and then I would request that it be amended that if quiet title is used, expenses should be borne by Jenny-O.
You want to read that back to us, Kevin?
It's a motion that if quiet title is used, Jenny-O Turkey Store would be responsible for the costs incurred. No second.
And that.
I'll second that.
A second. A motion has been made and a second to the amendment to the resolution. So we vote on the amendment first.
Correct.
All those in favor?
Mayor Yanish.
Yes, go ahead.
Just point of clarification, I think we're going against what the staff's recommending and what the city attorney is recommending. So I just would like to clarify one more time on that.
My recommendation didn't deal with cost. It was just to authorize the action. I have
Okay.
want to make that motion. That's
Yes, I mean,
That's
the council can make that motion if it chooses to, and make that decision.
Okay, so we're at the amendment to the resolution, am I right? Okay. Roll call.
Roll call. Councilmember Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
No.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly. DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 nay. The amendment passes.
That motion passes. And now we have voting on the resolution. To commence, adopt the resolution as presented would be the resolution. That would-
As amended.
As amended now.
As
As amended with the cost sharing limitation.
And we have a roll call for that.
We do, sir. Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries. Thank you, Bruce. Finance Committee report on June 23rd, 2014. Councilman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our meeting on the 23rd was actually the first part of it was a capital improvement council work session. We asked for public comment and there were none, so we moved into the capital improvement program work session. Staff presented information on the capital improvement program. The various funding sources were reviewed, which include bonding debt, cash from prior year's excess revenues, as well as unspent previous year's capital allocations, and special revenues from the wastewater treatment fund and local option sales tax. The capital improvement committee is currently working on a new 5-year capital improvement plan. The areas of focus for 2015 include transportation, pavement management, facilities review and maintenance, vehicle replacement program, storm surface water management, and the community park plan. It was noted that the Public Improvement Revolving Fund has $1 million, which could be used temporarily, and it is to be repaid to the PIR fund within 5 years. At that time, we asked for input from the various council members. I started out and made a few suggestions. One was to place a marker for a Vision 2040 projects in the amount of $250,000 a year for 4 years. Also, we need to put money in for facilities maintenance and park improvements. And I also raised the issue of economic development and downtown redevelopment. Councilmember Christensen felt the funds allocated for Becker Avenue improvements and downtown gateways should be removed and applied instead toward the auditorium improvements. He felt the city should not be involved with downtown redevelopment. He also said that 2nd Street Southwest is in poor shape and strongly urged that it be redone using geofoam base and a concrete street. Stormwater improvements should also be considered, possibly purchasing another house in the 10th and Candy Ojai Avenue area. Councilmember Nelson supported allocating funds for stormwater improvements needed throughout the city, Vision 2040 improvements and park improvements. She suggested researching other communities that have installed the geofoam base in concrete streets to see how it wears. She also requested new chairs for the council chambers as well as conference rooms at City Hall. Councilmember Fagerly said that funds could be allocated to only purchase property that is for sale in problem areas in an effort to avoid relocation costs. Councilmember Dawkins supported the stormwater improvements and pothole repairs. He also felt that the Olena Avenue street improvement was done too early before school was done for the year, which disrupted traffic. Councilmember Johnson felt we should set aside funds to either raise or improve vacant buildings in the downtown area. All of these things are being forwarded to the mayor for his consideration in the capital improvement program. Then we moved into actual work for the Finance Committee. The first item was a wheelchair lift at the Blue Line Center. Staff explained that the 2013 capital improvement plan budgeted $30,000 for the installation of a vertical wheelchair lift in the Blue Line Center viewing area. Civic Center staff has been working with vendors to create a plan to install this equipment to provide access for all users and spectators to the viewing area, the Blue Line arena. It's being recommended that the project be awarded to the lower of two bids received in the amount of $28,850 from Access Lifts. Council members inquired if there was any existing equipment of this type in the Civic Center, Blue Line Center, and staff will research this, and I believe we got a follow-up email on that subject. Following discussion, there was a motion made, seconded, and passed, and I'll introduce a resolution to approve the purchase of the vertical wheelchair lift from Access Lifts in the amount of $28,850 and to authorize the mayor and city administrator to execute the agreement.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve signing an agreement with Access Lifts to install a vertical wheelchair lift at a cost not to exceed $28,850. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries.
The next item on our agenda was a new telecom license agreement. Staff explained that New Telecom has contracted with state and county officials to install underground fiber connections, which needs to be done in the city right-of-way. Pursuant to Article 7, Section 8.01 of the City Code, it's required that New Telecom obtain a license from the city to perform this task. Pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 237.162 and 237.163, it's required that New Telecom enter into a license agreement with the City of Willmar to use the city right-of-way. The fee to be charged for New Telecom for the licensing agreement is $2,000. Following discussion, there was a motion made, seconded, and passed, and I introduce a resolution to authorize the mayor and city administrator to execute the license agreement with New Telecom as presented.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the New Telecom license agreement and authorize the mayor and the city administrator to execute the agreement. Is there any discussion? Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Has this company ever worked for the city? Have they ever done work for our city?
No, I do not believe that.
I do not believe that they ever have.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries.
The next item was the 2014 street improvements, 1401, 04, 05, and 07. These are the final budgets. Staff presented the proposed final budgets for the 2014 street improvement projects, number 1401, 1404, 1405, and 1407. It was noted that project 1403, which was for the street overlay projects previously denied by the council, has been eliminated. So I'm going to introduce a number of 4 resolutions approving the final budgets. These were all motions were made, seconded, and passed. And the first one I'll introduce is a resolution approving the final budget for the 2014 street improvement project 1401, street construction in the amount of $1,160,160 as presented.
Second. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the proposed final budgets for 2014 street improvement projects, number 1401. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries.
Then I would introduce a resolution approving the final budget for 2014 street improvement project number 1404, street new construction in the amount of $361,383.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to review and approve the proposed final budgets for 2014 street improvement 1404. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion carries.
Then I would introduce a resolution approving the final budget for 2014 street improvement project 1405, industrial park streets in the amount of $3,500,000.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the 2014 street improvement projects number 1405. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries.
And finally, I'll introduce a resolution approving the final budget for 2014 street improvement project 1407. That's the Willmar Avenue street lighting realignment in the amount of $76,200.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the final budget for 2014 street improvement project number 1407. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion carries.
That took care of that business. Then we went to old business. There was no old business and there was no new business. So unless there's questions, I'd move to file these minutes.
Second. A motion has been made and seconded to file the minutes of the Finance Committee report on June 23rd, 2014. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That motion carries. We'll move on to the Public Works Safety Committee report for July 1st, 2014. Councilman Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did meet at 4:45, July 1, 2014. Item number 2, public comments. Nobody was there to comment. So our next item had to do with the issuance of burn permits within the city limits. And this is for information only. Our fire chief presented for information purposes the issuance of burn permits within city limits. The authority to issue burning permits on behalf of the Department of Natural Resource is designated to our fire marshal. As of May 15th, our fire marshal has determined it was in the best interest of the city to stop issuing burn permits within city limits due to the numerous complaints from citizens. This will encourage members of the community to bring their brush to the city's brush site with the expectation it will also minimize burning complaints. An alternative would be that burn permits could be issued during the winter months where there is a 3-foot snowpack, which is sufficient to keep fire from spreading. Item number 4, under old business, our Public Works Director, Sean Christensen, presented project updates on the 2014 street improvements, 1401 Gorton and 9th Avenue Northwest. He stated the contracts are currently being processed. A pre-construction meeting will be scheduled during the next couple of weeks. At the pre-construction meeting, the contractor will provide the project schedule. Project number 1404, which is 12th Street Southeast. Contracts for the project are currently being processed. Again, a pre-construction meeting will be held during the next couple of weeks. Willmar Avenue Railroad Crossing. A meeting was held on the site on June 23rd. Representatives from BNSF, Dunnick, Bolton Mink, and the city. BNSF stated that work on the crossing would begin the week of July 14th, and the signal work would follow. Although a specific date has not been set, it is expected that Dunnick will resume construction after the track surface has been installed by BNSF as early as the week of the 14th. Construction will require that traffic on Willmar Avenue be detoured, and it is estimated that the detour will be in place beginning sometime the week of August 14th, and will remain in place until the new roadway alignment construction is complete. Excuse me, that's July 14th. Project 1301B, which is 2nd Street Southeast, the non-wear paving is complete, and the contractor will be seating and adjusting valves and manholes as soon as possible. As soon as the contractor is in town paving other wear courses, they will pave the intersections at Olena and Willmar Avenue. Midwest Lift Station project was awarded to Dunnick's, and they will be clearing trees around the site. They're anticipating the notice to proceed on July 7th, with the news released by July 14th. The City of Willmar anticipates closing with Jenny O next week on the land for their corporate office addition, with site work, paving, and storm water drainage beginning in July. Auditorium. The auditorium lead abatement is expected to start in August, and lead dust has been found to be worse than anticipated. Committee requested that Ingen present an update on the report and findings on the project at the next council meeting, which is today. And do I understand that Andy is here to give us a report on that?
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, thanks for inviting me here today. We've done a lot of progress since the last time we met looking at the city auditorium. We spent most of the previous month working with the city to hire an independent industrial hygienist to review the existing conditions of the auditorium. He did meet with us and then meet on site. At that time, he ran several additional tests to find out the entire scope of the abatement and hazardous material that we're looking at. From those tests, we were able to determine the additional scope that we're looking at, which is we're going to replace the ductworks as well as we look at this project. And so coming into the last couple of weeks, we talked about his bidding process and how he's going to coordinate his demolition, and then our project is to fill in what he takes out of the project. So the way it sounded is next week he would have his abatement bid documents ready, and they would go out for bids, and then the end of July, early August, those bids would come in, and you would have the cost for the abatement of hazardous materials number in front of you at that time to make a decision on. The plan is probably to have some alternates. There's some places where we can just conceal the hazardous material rather than tearing it all out and having to patch it all back in, which is more expensive. But we're going to give you the options so you can make the decisions on what seems most costly for the city. Meanwhile, while that project is going on, we are finishing up our bid documents this month as well. We've done a study on the details of the rain gutters and the mechanical system, spent a lot of time looking at how it all goes together, and invited our mechanical engineer to visit the site once again and went through the details of that. He is currently working on his mechanical project, and our architectural finishes are going to follow that as well. The majority of our work is finishes in the firing range and training room, as well as just some patching of soffits for what we need to do to work with the mechanical. And so we're moving right along. We're optimistic that we'll be ready by the end of the month here as well to go out for bids. And so once the abatement process is completed, our bid numbers should come back in, and the City Council can make decisions at that time on our base bid of construction dollar amount and the deduct alternates that we are proposing as well. And it would look like the closer to the middle/end of August that you'll have the construction numbers, and then you'll be able to make a decision at that time, hopefully for a September start on actually bringing the new mechanical equipment in and patching up the building. It often takes 4 to 6 weeks for mechanical equipment to get ordered and come on site, and so we're anticipating a 2 to 3 month construction time. Not that they're going to be in there every day, but they have to wait for equipment, and once the equipment comes, they will certainly then work as fast as possible. I gave you that 3-month schedule because I like to cushion it a little bit, but it's certainly if we can work faster. I know contractors want to work fast, and we want things to be done fast as well. So that's kind of the status of where we're at and what we're anticipating at this time. We're going to know a little more in a couple weeks. We're going to revise our budget numbers to see where we're anticipating the project to come in at and review that again with staff. We've had several opportunities to meet with staff, and it's been good progress. So,
excuse me, but there's noted in here that abatement will start in August. Is that correct?
That's anticipated. Yep, with council approval.
Is there any other? Is there a completion, some kind of a schedule for completion on this too?
For the abatement schedule?
No, for the entire fixing the auditorium.
If we take 3 months, it would be September, October, November. So the end of November would be the anticipated latest this project would go.
Okay.
And it all depends on if materials can get on site.
Sure. We have an annual Veterans Day display there, and evidently he's been told that he won't be able to have it at the auditorium because everything that's going to be working on there. I'm assuming that's correct.
That is from the discussions that we had that I've heard, correct.
Due to that, if anybody knows a building or an area that this display could be held in Willmar within the city limits, please get a hold of John Lindstrom. He's looking for a place to have that display on Veterans Day. Thank you, Andy. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Before you run away, is there anything anybody would care to add to that?
Well, I'll just make one more comment for some election confidence. The bids are coming in July 28th for this abatement. We'll take it right to finance 4 hours later from the bid opening, which will then go to the August 4th council meeting for ratification. The next week would be letters back and forth and looking at certificates of insurance and performance bonds, and about August 11th they could start. We will hold them off until the 13th, which is a day after the primary election, so that the voting precinct will be active, and they should finish probably the end of August for all their cleaning. And we will put in the bids for construction, a different contractor, that at least November 4th is a quiet day. They could paint or do things that aren't banging all day long, and so that the polling location will also be held in Memorial Room. So we'll work around both of those.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council.
Mayor Yanish?
Go ahead.
Just a clarification, I think it was stated at another meeting, but all activities in there are being rescheduled for what time frame right now?
We are being very conservative. I mean, we are rescheduling activities that would be from roughly August through December. So we are
Okay.
trying to reschedule activities so that, again, if there's any delays in either the construction process or bid award, that we've accounted for that, and we are not scheduling activities there until January. We're trying to work with all of those who've had activities scheduled to find alternate locations, including Mr. Lindstrom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council.
You're welcome.
Continuing with updates, that was the end of the updates from our city engineer. Our chief of police, Mr. Felt, was also at the meeting, and he noted that the jail census for that day, July 1st, was 113, And calls for service for the previous 2 weeks totaled 1,106. Our fire chief, Gary Hendrickson, was there, and he also noted that there have been 142 calls for the year as far as compared to 121 last year. Far less property damage this year, though, compared to last year. It was highlighted that on July 12th, the Willmar Fire Department was given permission by Rice Hospital to burn a structure at 525 Southwest 3rd Street. They'll send out notices to all residents in that area notifying that the burn will be taking place unless there are high winds. Item number 5 is a resolution also brought to us by our Fire Chief, Mr. Hendrickson. He's recommending that we approve the Candioi County mitigation plan developed by city and county emergency management staff. The plan identifies policies and actions implemented to reduce risk and future loss. Mitigation plans form the foundation for a community's long-term strategy to reduce disaster losses and break the cycle of disaster damage, reconstruction, and repeated damage. It was noted that FEMA will not obligate funds unless the local or state government meets the requirements, and there is a FEMA-approved mitigation plan in place. The county adopted the plan on June 3rd of this year and sent it to the cities in the community to be adopted as well. With that information giving, a motion was made, seconded, and passed for the following, and I will introduce the resolution to approve the Candioi County mitigation plan.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to adopt the resolution of the Candioi County's mitigation plan. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly. DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That was the end of our meeting, and if there are no questions or comments, I would move to file these minutes.
Second.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Just a couple of questions. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it. That's my standing committee, Public Works. And I requested this be brought up, the issue of the building permits. Not only, I'll be perfectly honest, I had a brush pile on my 3-acre site that I wanted to get rid of. But also from a couple other people in town that in the past, the previous fire marshal has approved, and I'm not trying to pick on you, Gary, our fire chief, but I'm just wondering, as far as the complaints go, when people burn wood or branches, is there a limit, or the reason why it's the complaints are these large fires, or small fires, or recreational fires, or what kind of complaints are we receiving, and who has documentation of that?
Mayor and members of council, we've had numerous complaints from large brush piles to the one most recently is the neighbor has a fire pit that's legal, not necessarily legal from their residence distance-wise, but smoke is emitting from it and causing the neighbor not to be able to have their windows open. And ultimately, that's the biggest concern, is people are not able to have their windows open during this time of the year, obviously. The summer is shorter this year. Therefore, my recommendation is to get people to bring it out to the brush site that we do have. Now, it did say 3 feet of snow within the recommendation. It should have said 3 inches. So we wouldn't be buried in that capacity.
It said feet in the report.
Yeah. So my recommendation is those that are interested, there is not a need to have a burn permit, if you will, in those during that time because the windows aren't open and everything else. So again, those that have come in, I did give that as an alternate to basically burn in the winter months versus the summer months.
So none of the complaints have been for the fire training homes that we've burnt down through the years?
No, I haven't had any.
They've all had notification of it, probably.
Yep, we give notification on it just like we did for this weekend.
Well, just my point, I think freedom is being restricted, I think in certain situations based on the acreage and the size and the distance from buildings and fire prevention and non-flammable objects within 100 or 150 feet with a small fire should be allowed in the city. So I don't agree with you, but I'll go along with the committee's recommendation if that's what you're going to do. But I think in some cases, people should be able to burn some of their wood occasionally, as long as they're not burning garbage. That's, I'm sure, one of the concerns, and on the appropriate days, too. But that's just my personal opinion. And again, it was based on me, and I did get rid of my branches. And I guess a few other people are going to have to just haul it out the brush site. So, thank you.
We have a motion on the table, is that?
Yes, we do, sir.
We have a resolution,
Nope, we just have a motion to file now.
a motion.
File the minutes.
File the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That motion carries. Kevin, could we explain number 13, consideration of resolution appointing elections judges for the primary elections?
Mayor Yanish, members of the council, you have before you a resolution indicating the head judge and all the election judges at each polling location. Pursuant to a law, we must adopt the resolution appointing those judges, and you can rest assured that we have balanced those judges as best we can between the two major political parties. It's staff recommendation to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to adopt the resolution to the elections, primary elections and the elections. Is that a resolution?
Yes, sir.
Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that motion carries. Kevin, would you like to explain to us to approve the on-sale liquor license for Sundays?
Mayor Yanish, members of the council, you are well aware that TPI Core Properties, Torgerson Properties, is completing and near completing the second restaurant called Ruff's Wings and Sports Bar. It should be opening near the middle of August. We have received their application for their second liquor license and their Sunday license. They really are two separate votes, but they go hand in hand. We have, of course, run everything through the chief of police, and everything has been found to be in order. And it's staff recommendation that you approve by roll call vote each of the two indicated license, the on sale and the Sunday on sale.
Move to approve the Sunday on sale.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the on-sale Sunday liquor license through December 31st, 2014. Roll call. Is there any discussion first? Roll call.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That carries.
Mr. Mayor, motion to approve the on-sale license through year end, April 25th. of
Second.
2015.
Second? A motion has been made and seconded to approve the liquor sales license through April 25th? Is that right?
Yes, sir. It's a different ordinance and different fiscal year.
Okay, and roll call.
Councilmember Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries. Consideration of a 1 to 4 day temporary on-sale liquor license, Willmar Eagles. Kevin, would you like to explain that to us, please?
Mayor Yanish, members of the council, the Willmar Fraternal Order of the Eagles, who is a current club on-sale liquor license holder, is requesting authorization to host an outdoor liquor sales and consumption in their parking lot, and it is not a part of their premise permit. And they have planned this event, and they have submitted a map with the proper fencing to the chief of police, who has given his approval. And in order to do this, a state 1 day to 4 day temporary on-sale license needs to be granted to them. The scheduled event is July 20th, 2014. It is staff's recommendation to approve the 1 to 4 day permit.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the 1 to 4 day permit liquor license. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries. Consideration of the final plat for Harmar Foods Edition. Bruce, you want to explain that to us, please?
Mayor Yanush, members of the council, before you this evening is the final plat for Harmar Foods Edition. It's a 3-lot plat located on South First Street. The primary business in this plat is the new Hardee's restaurant, and then there's an office building on the back lot. It is platted as a common interest community, which provides for an outlot that gives access to all of the properties within the plat. The Planning Commission has reviewed and approved the final plat, and it's a recommendation of staff that the council approve the final plat as well.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the final plat of Harmar Foods Edition, which is the Hardee's store in Willmar. And approve the final plat, and that would be, is that a resolution or a motion?
It is a standard motion, sir.
Standard motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That motion carries. And now we'll do the consideration of the final plat for Bethesda Nursing Home 3rd Edition.
Mayor Yanush, members of the council, again, this is the final plat, the preliminary plat having been previously approved by the council. Bethesda Nursing Home 3rd Edition is a 2-parcel subdivision. It is being platted to accommodate the expansion being planned for this summer. The final plat has been approved by the Planning Commission with several conditions, and those conditions have for the most part been met. We're still waiting for them to pay off the special assessment, and also there's a requirement that we have access, parking, and stormwater easements that will be recorded along with the plat, and we're in the process of receiving those. We will not move to file the final plat until those conditions have been met. It's a recommendation of staff that the council approve the final plat.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the final plat of the Bethesda Nursing Home 3rd Edition. Is there any, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Peterson, what were the setbacks? Were they given variances on the setbacks to the buildings on that location?
They did receive a couple setbacks that would allow them to build consistent with existing building lines, nothing closer than previously exist, or than currently exists.
And that's on, that existing is a structure that's on the west side of the town, west side of the development?
Correct, it's on the 9th Street southeast side.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, what's the setback from the right-of-way to the building? Do you know? Is it under 30 feet?
Yes, I believe they were allowed to come out, and don't quote me on this, I think it was 20 or 22 feet.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. That motion carries. Is there any new business? How about old business? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if it's new business or old business, but it's the EDC lease. I think the chairman should reconvene that commission and look at leases again, because it appears the one lease that came in last didn't really get notified, or his building wasn't done. And the concern I have is the Elks are probably buying a building that's too expensive and too big for what they need. And remember, they did have a building on North Highway 71, and they couldn't afford it, and the city ended up buying it. And it's the community center now, so I think they should really look at all the options.
Your comments are duly noted. I think, I'll just make this comment, and I think the legal side of it we will look into. But there was a process in place with an end date as to when the proposals were supposed to come in. There was at least one other that we did not accept that came in after the fact. I don't know if it was one or if it was two. So I think we needed to follow the process. The question pretty much revolves around the legality of this, and I've already got it noted. I will look into that, or we'll have legal people look into it and see if we have done anything afoul of the law.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Go
can I
ahead.
comment on Rick and Dennis's? I just want to let you know this, that this idea that I came in at the 11th hour isn't necessarily true. When I talked to this individual, he said he purchased a building, which used to be owned by, like, Mr. Broman, where Kuzma Construction has his office upstairs. But this would be on the main floor. But I just happened to be talking to him, I haven't seen him in like 5 or 6 years, and he said he purchased this building. I said, hey, do you have any office space? And I said, here's a number, get in touch with Steve. So I wasn't trying to push anything through, it was just want to make that perfect clear. But and also, there were no RFPs, there was no written sealed bids on RFPs for this, in this process. So I feel that the last hour, or 11th hour, as reported in the newspaper, even though they knew about, Steve knew about it 5 days prior to the meeting, it was nothing more than a search, just like you look for an apartment in town. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I appreciate your comments, and I'm sure we'll take care of it.
Thank you. Announcement of council committee. Do you have a question?
One announcement, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if everybody's aware that Visioning 2040, they sponsored their first event under the Things to Do committee. They had a movie in the park. June 27th, that was moved indoors because of the weather. There was over 100 people that attended it within the indoor event. Their next planned event is a movie in the park for July 23rd.
And that one will actually be at the Dorothy Aquatic Center.
Okay. Announcement of council committee meeting dates, if there's no other comments, old or new business? Okay. Councilman Anderson.
Finance Committee will meet Monday, the 14th at 4:45.
Councilman Ahman.
No Labor Committee scheduled yet until after negotiations are continued, then we'll have another meeting.
Okay. Public Works, Councilman Christensen.
July 15th, 2014, Tuesday.
And Community Development, Councilman Fagerly.
Thursday, July 17th, 4:45 at City Hall.
That being said, I will introduce a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.